Well, it's
We're gonna go
interesting because Penn State, to me, has built their roster specifically defensively to match
for
up
Ohio
with
State.
Ohio State.
Yep,
And I thought you saw that this year in the outcome of the
100%.
Michigan Penn State game and the Michigan Ohio State, or in the Penn State Ohio State game, right? Like
Much better
they
suited for Ohio State.
they took Ohio State to the fourth quarter, right?
Yep.
They took them to the anchor, they took them to the fourth leg, and then Ohio State just had too many horses, and they let a couple self-inflicted wounds cause some serious bleeding
But
that
look
they
how you
couldn't
built
stop.
it. But look how you did point that out. Penn State's secondary is arguably the best in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
And then incredible safeties who
long,
cover all
fast,
kind of ground.
physical. Yep,
Long, fast, physical corners. You got probably one of the three, or probably the best corner outside the SEC in
Joey Porter Jr.
Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, he's
Bama's got
stud.
a kid, and Eli Ricks, and LSU's got a dude, but Porter can stand on any field with anybody
Yeah,
solo. And then you're right, they're long, they're built for speed. We're going to get into these long track meets with these guys. Michigan, they're already built to go into Columbus and do what they need to do. And they got to be thinking, man, hope it snows, hope it's sleet, hope it's this, hope it's that. We're only throwing 15, 18 times a game any damn way.
mm-hmm.
Both backs are ready to come downhill. Offensive line, we've been celebrating them all season. They treat him like a glamour position. Remember back when Stanford, probably back 10 years back, when Andrus Pete and all those big Costanzo and all those big offensive linemen, Stanford hit the recruiting trail and treated offensive linemen like other programs treat skilled kids on both sides of the ball. We celebrate you. We're a spot for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Michigan's been doing. And they're only going to get more of these kids. You mean I get to put my hand in the ground and come around the corner on somebody?
And they also got some kids in the portal now too, right? That's another element we haven't talked about. I mean, they already got some pre-baked kids who maybe fit more of the Michigan mold, but are playing in the wrong system, right? This transfer portal allows them to go out and handpick these kids that, from a cookie cutter standpoint, physical tool set, physical trait standpoint, bring them into Michigan, get them up to speed. And they've already done that. There are like, you're not going and taking an 18-year-old kid. You're taking a 20, 22-year-old kid, 21, 22-year-old kid, bringing them in and letting them play and inserting them into a style that they love and embrace. That's powerful too. And that can fix a lot of issues fast for them if they ever come into that where they have depth issues or they don't recruit as well one year at that position. They can go out and get them now.
And remember how Michigan State plucked Kenneth Walker from Wake Forest.
Yeah,
and the impact he had.
Yep.
And then Alabama with Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Send a little sprinter van down there, throw some snacks in there and see if he wants to come riding up here. And don't forget the duffel. Yep. You don't think Michigan couldn't do that? You don't think there's a couple either thumpers like Walker or a couple Alvin Kamara Jr. kid brothers out there that wouldn't want to come and tote for 25, 30 times a game? So if you're Michigan, man, let it snow, let it snow. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. It doesn't affect us. And then just watching that Monday Night Football game last night when the Redskins had 40 minutes of ball control and Jalen Hurts has 19 and some change and he's on the sideline. It's hard to impact the game when they got you in a chokehold. And I feel like that's what Michigan will do. Slow it down. We're really only trying to get 4 to 6 yards a clip here anyway. We got some boot action coming, but don't worry about that. That'll be for third down, and that ain't for 12 more plays according to the script. And just turn it into literally a ground and pound UFC fight. Ohio State comes in like Mayweather, and like they really do equal it out. You just can't afford to make mistakes. Because Ohio State can come leapfrogging up and catch up quick.
Right.
Am I close on that?
No, I think you're spot on. The one thing that I've noticed, and again, I don't have the privilege of having access to all 22 and being able to go back and spin up all these games, after Saturdays and nerd out over it. But I have watched a fair amount of Ohio State, and the one thing I've noticed about them is they really don't have, with the exception of the extension of the run game with the bubble screens and the green grass type throws and kick it out there, you got access, kick it out there to a guy on a key and let him go make a play and make 8 yards. they don't have or haven't shown a propensity to focus on the quick game type schemes where they can get the ball out of CJ's hand, get him or get him in rhythm, get it to those guys in space. They're very, very vertical. There's a lot of seams. There's a lot of comebacks, sideline type throws. You every once in a while you'll get your crossers, your shallow crossers and stuff like that. But you really don't see like a lot of like snag concepts or even like slant flat and just stuff that's like, okay, cool. We're having a hard time running the football. They're getting pressure on CJ. We don't need to necessarily drop him back right now. We could just go a quick little, hey, here's Marvin Harrison Jr. on a little quick slant. You're going to come up and press him, dummy, boom, 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 snap it off. There's 8, possibly more, right? Because you got guys who got juice. I haven't seen a ton of that, and that's something that I look for Ohio State to lean on, especially with the loss of depth in their running back room. That's something that we highlighted after this weekend with Mayan Williams going down, and then Travion Henderson not even dressing, and then them losing their third back, who would be a 1 pretty much anywhere else in the country in the preseason with an ACL injury or a season-ending injury. I don't know what it was. I don't want to jump the gun there with that either, but they're thin. So in order to manufacture timing and rely on the screen game, whether it be with the receivers or the running backs that you do have, and then start building in some more of those quick concepts and that spacing, horizontal zone beater stuff, because there's not many teams that will come out and man you up. So that's an extension in a way for Ohio State to manufacture that stay on schedule. We're going to control the football type of game, as opposed to the let's air it out, live and die by the 3 ball. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we're going to end up like Jalen Hurts on the sidelines and only have 18 minutes of possession against a team that's built like Michigan. So that's a real interesting thing that I've noticed that I think, maybe is worth highlighting and paying attention to if you're going to be watching this Ohio State team down the stretch.
Field of 12 after dark. It's a Tuesday night. We're going over the college football rankings now. We're projecting a little bit ahead of what the rankings are going to pour into that tournament. Christian Hackenberg, George Whitfield, Yogi Roth will be joining us soon. Hack, I ask you this question. Given what you just said, what we're talking about here with Ohio State, and they love to get vertical, put yourself back in that Penn State huddle. As you look around the huddle, you see a kid like Ibuka. Then you look over here and you see Jackson Smith and Jigba. Then you look over to your left and you see Marvin Harrison Jr. All 3 of those kids, 2 for sure, are going to be the number 1 receiver on an NFL team in like 2 or 3 years. And I keep hearing, I don't know if it was Troy Aikman or Joel Klatt or whoever said Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL, period, in 3 or 4 years. How many teams in the top 10, we just did the whole deal, how many teams have their wide receiver room as their number 1 talented room in the building? And is this why we see Ohio State try to go to them to get the rent paid so much? Is this why they go through them so much for big plays?
100%. I think when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud who can facilitate it, right? That's obviously a big part in that. You got to get someone who can get it in their hands. But when you have that, it's hard to resist, right? And then, the 4 and 5 guys at Ohio State. Julian Fleming was the number 1 player out of the state of Pennsylvania last year, 2 years ago. Like he's sitting there like scratching and clawing to get on the field as the rotational guy, right? That's a testament to the way they built it, and they've been that way for as long as I can remember. I mean, back Devin Smith, Mike Thomas, they've always had go-getters out there. And it's just, I don't think anyone else. The next closest would probably be Tennessee.
Agreed.
If I could make an argument, the next closest would probably be Tennessee, and they're even different though. Like those guys are big, long, tall, can run, but they're not gonna route you up. Like you said, Marvin Harrison Jr. is so, whether it's a benefit of him watching his father grow up and be around it, which is a huge benefit for anybody in that position. You can be as talented as you want, but he knows how to work and he understands the game at a deeper level. Route running, creativity of route running, setting things up. You see him and how he does it, and then his body control and athleticism and all those things that the scouts look at just speak for themselves. But that's the element, and that's why people are talking about him being potentially one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL in 5 years, is that stuff that he puts on tape week in, week out. So, it's definitely, I don't, Tennessee is probably the closest.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That style right there, I think, matches up. I think Michigan comes in even money. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
To see what would the wise guys do in that game. What's home field advantage in college? It's
yeah,
not
well, and the other thing too is that game is it's one of the oldest rivalries in the sport. There's so much that goes into that game too. Like I talked to Joshua Perry about it. He and I do a Big Ten podcast every week, and that, I mean, it lives and breathes in their locker room. They have a ticker. Whoever the hell's up there that week, like, great, they're focused on them. But every time they walk past the equipment room, there's a ticker with the all the M's X'd out, and that team up
both
north,
schools.
the game both of them have it that way, right? So there's a lot that goes into it, and we've talked about before, like that element. That element is it's one of the coolest things about college sports and rivalries in general.